Rama asked. Holy One, in the case of a city which appeared in one's dream, it continues to be if it is a real city. Is this what you imply in your teaching? So what's Rama asking here? I suppose if you're dreaming about a place which is real, that place continues to be real once you've woken up. Vasistha replied, You are right, O Ram. Since the dream of a city, etc., is based on the real substratum of infinite consciousness, these dream objects appear to be real. But then there is no real difference between the waking state of consciousness and the dream state. What is real in the one is unreal in the other. Hence, both these states are essentially of the same nature. The argument here is that, or what's being stated here is that what we think of as reality is actually of the same stuff as our dream world. And there's a good argument for that, in that both of them are constructed by the mind. Our mind, according to scientific thinking, receives electronic impulses. That's what the senses do. They transform apparently external sensations into electricity, which goes to the mind. If it comes from the eye, the electricity goes through the optic nerve to the mind, and it gets recreated as a visual object, a sight. But what's doing that is the mind that's doing it. And we say it's doing this with electricity, it's doing it with electrical signals. And how it does that is it's a bit of a non-sequitur as far as I'm concerned. And in fact the whole notion of that story of electrical signals going into the mind is a little bit of it's a bit of a fabrication as well. But the point here is that the actual image is created by the mind. Is it somehow stored in electricity? How does the mind create sensations of touch and smell and hearing from electrical signals? Because that is effectively, this is a scientific story, this is effectively what the mind is doing, it's creating these things. So we're actually creating the whole sensory world in our mind. Our mind is doing it, just as it creates the dream world. So we could say that they're essentially it's the same thing, because they're both created by the mind. It says, what is real in the one is unreal in the other. Hence both these states are essentially of the same nature. And when we're awake, we tend to say that the dreams aren't real. The dream world isn't real. And when we're dreaming, the waking state, we don't even acknowledge it usually. And so again, they're both essentially of the same nature in that respect. Although it's not quite that symmetrical, is it? Because when we're awake, we can talk about the dream state. And when we're sleeping, we don't talk about the awake state, do we? We think we're actually in the awake state. So it's not quite that symmetrical. There is a difference. We often say, how do we know? We often ask, how do we know we're not dreaming right now? There doesn't seem to be any way of knowing, really, from a philosophical point of view. And that's because this is like another dream. But we seem to wake up to this state, don't we? I know I'm awake right now. I know I'm not dreaming. And I've no doubt about that. It's an internal conviction, although I might express that conviction in a dream as well, of course. But I have no doubt right now that I'm awake and not talking in a dream. Maybe you can call it some innate sense. But And also, whenever I wake up, I'm waking up into this reality. If I pass out, if I faint, I go into a coma, this is the reality I come back to. It's like this is the base reality, this is the root reality, isn't it? But, so it seems to sort of say something about this reality being more concrete. But it doesn't mean to say that. It doesn't mean that at all. It's just showing that realities are coming and going. This reality is coming and going all the time. It disappears when we go to sleep, when we go into our dream, and then it comes back. And when this one finishes, perhaps when we die, that'll be the end of it. And what we found is that this life was a little blip in another reality. Perhaps I passed out, some other person has passed out, and this is the life that they're experiencing now, with all the sleeping and the dreams going on in it. It's an interesting phenomenon as well. I don't know if it's quite related, but have you noticed that when you're dreaming, you actually have memories in your dream? You remember things that have happened in the past. And I'm not saying that they happened in this reality. They're to do with the dream reality. Your dream reality comes with the whole history. It comes with the whole set of memories. And you can wake up in a dream as well, can't you? So the point I'm making here is that dreams can also be a base reality. You can come and go and come back to dreams over and over again, come back to the dream reality over and over again. So the sense that this is a base reality has to be questioned, that this is somehow the real reality. There's no basis for that, even though I might have an innate conviction or intuition that it is. Therefore, the objects of the waking or the dreaming consciousness are equally unreal, except for the infinite consciousness on which they're all superimposed. They're not really superimposed, it's just one of these words we've got to use for lack of a better description. It's like saying a mirage is superimposed on the heat waves. I suppose you can talk that way, but it doesn't really convey the reality very well. After having imparted this teaching to the king, Sarasvati blessed him and said, "May all auspiciousness attend you. You have seen what is to be seen. Give us leave to go." Vidurata said, "Soon, O goddess, I shall go from here." He's about to die, the king. He's in dire straits, as we'll find out in a minute. "Soon, O goddess, I shall go from here, just as one goes from one dream to another in sleep. Pray grant that my ministers and my virgin daughter may go with me." Sarasvati granted this prayer.